Welcome to the show, Greg. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Chris.
I've been looking forward to having you.
Yeah, I really appreciate. I look forward myself. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, let's just dive right into it. I've been really looking forward to having you on. One of the reasons is I really admire your passion for real estate, and for somebody like myself, and I've been no stranger to my viewers and followers. Like, I'm only in my second year. So when I really see somebody going around with the amount of passion, you really kind of want to talk to them and kind of hear what that's all about. And I think that's kind of what we want to tell the people.
absolutely. I mean, yeah. After 24 years, to still have the passion, like, yeah, a lot of people question,
Right.
how can you go so long and still keep the passion there? So,
Absolutely. So kind of the big question, when did you realize Craig Snow was going to be a realtor? When did this come to fruition?
you know what? I was working with a corporation, at a VP level about, I guess, 25 years ago, and you kind of get tired of the day-to-day grind, making everybody rich except for yourself, like, having your own say, or you're always answering to people. So for me, it was one summer afternoon in July. I was out on my back deck having a barbecue. My family had been in from Ontario, and I said to my wife, I said, you know what? I want to change careers. I really want to have my own business. I want to be in control of my own business, my own destiny, where I would go. And so I started reaching out to the different real estate offices around Halifax and came across REMAX and talked to the owner, and he explained the ins and outs of what I would expect to see getting into real estate, and away I went. The rest is history. I mean, I got in, just like yourself. I got into the real estate not really knowing a lot of people, but I just got out there and started working hard and talking to people and knocking on doors, and eventually I had a big following of clients and people that I were dealing with, and I came in across some new construction along the way, and that catapulted my career. So yeah, it's been 24 years. I still have the passion for it. I love helping people, and I think that's, if you have a passion for helping people, you'll do really well in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, you've been in it for, you said 25 years?
Going on 25 years now.
Going on 25 years. So you've definitely seen like some transitions in the industry.
Have I ever? Yeah.
Right? So one thing I was kind of curious to ask is, since you started in the industry, what have you kind of noticed being kind of the biggest shift people have had to get used to, say, even just in the short couple of years to, when you first started, what's the ways of working you had to kind of adopt to kind of keep pushing forward and being successful?
Well, I tell you, Chris, when I got in the business, we were still running on pagers.
Right.
And real estate listings were in a book, so
Imagine that.
Yeah, you can imagine. We used to pay, I think it was like $50. You'd get a book that came out once a week, and it had all the new listings. It gave you all the updates on what ones were under conditions and sold, but it was a book, and we called it the Bible, the real estate Bible. And so for the public to find out what was available, they needed a realtor back then to access that book, say, to find out what was available. So, we would back then, photocopy pages in the book in different areas throughout the city, and we would deliver that to our clients and say, here's some homes that you can look at. But I would say the big shift has been from the paper that we used to carry to evolving into the technology. I got a really nice mobile phone, and, now we have smartphones. The technology now, like, consumers have access to what we have as realtors at their fingertips if they got a computer or even a smartphone, and they can see the listings live. The key is, one thing that hasn't changed, that's been the norm, sort of the constant since I've gotten into business, it's that personal interaction. You still need a realtor to get you into that home. You still need a realtor to actually protect you in your whether you're purchasing something or whether you're selling something. So that hasn't changed. You still need a realtor, but the technology, the advancement in technology since when I became a realtor has come a long way.
Right, of course. Even for myself, like, I remember no cell phones, landlines, rotary phones.
Yeah.
I remember Dad coming home with the first cell phone, was one of those Motorola bricks. We thought it was the next best thing next to slice.
I had the bag phone. I had everything. Right. And you even look at the contracts. Back then it was a 3-copy contract. You get a white copy, yellow copy, pink copy. Right. You'd have the press
sheet.
You'd have the press really hard when you were writing a contract. Everything was handwritten. If you had a really good client, you'd go back to the office, use a typewriter, and you'd type it up, the offer for your clients. But most times, you'd be in their home or at a Tim Hortons or somewhere, handwriting these offers up, and the client would get the white copy, you'd keep the pink and yellow, and that's how the offering process was back then. As opposed to today, everything is electronic signature. Very seldom do you now sit in front of your people. You go over maybe by Zoom, or you go by phone, you go page by page.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the part that we've kind of lost, which I think some agents now are getting back to getting in front of people, because that's important.
Right. That's awesome. And people kind of complain about some of the new tech that we have now. Imagine if we had to rewind.
Well, can you imagine?
I don't know if I could do it.
I don't know. I could do it.
Right. Well, you've been there.
To this day, I still go and see my clients, and I still get all my offers, signed right in person. So,
do you feel like that experience, like early on in those times, were kind of invaluable to your kind of success today?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Develop the work ethic.
Yeah, the work ethic. You had to actually get out back then. You didn't have the social channels and stuff like that to get your name out there, or sort of promote yourself like you do today with Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all that. You have so many social channels. YouTube and all that is out there now. You can get out there, and a lot of people can see you. So back then, it was a grind. You got in your vehicle early mornings, you got out, you picked your schedule, your routes where you would go and knock on doors, go meet people, and that's all you did day in and day out. And I think if you take that work ethic into today's world and you add the social side of it, I would love to be an agent today starting up with the work ethic I had back then.
Right.
I think I would kill it today too. And that's not just because I think so. It's because I do believe people really want to see you these days.
Yeah.
Right.
Now it goes back to that age-old saying, like, if I knew what I knew now, yesterday.
Wow. Yeah, I know.
Just another thing, kind of digging back, can you tell people kind of, the state of the market back then? How many listings were could you see on the market? In Halifax, competition-wise. I know we've traditionally always been a buyer market, and really only as of late, that's really shifted with the increased demand.
That's right.
And the lack of supply.
Yeah, there was always, even back in the day when I started, there was always at least 2,500 to 3,000 listings available on the open market. And you're right. For the most part, it was always a buyer's market, never a seller's market. We had a couple of blips over the years, one being when Sable Offshore was signed up, back in the early 2000s. Right. Yeah. When Sable Offshore got the green light, our market really picked up then. And for a while, we did have what you would call a seller's market back then. I remember standing in lines on properties, throughout the city, to get into the house. Wow. With my clients, and then you'd go into a bidding process. And then the next, bump we saw was then when the shipbuilding got signed off. That was the second time I saw like a really big bump in our market. And again, bidding wars, but it was short-lived. It lasted maybe just for a few months till people realized that, oh, okay, this is not going to take place for a few years. And the longevity of it is 30 years out, and they're not building them all at once.
Right.
So there was a lot of clients, or a lot of people that actually bought at the height of it that probably made a boo-boo, or they probably weren't working with the right agents that sort of saw where the market was going. I didn't see that the shipbuilding should have been a time when the market jumped the way it did. However, some agents did. There was bidding. They overpaid, because within about a 12-month period, anyone that bought, that were trying to sell, lost quite a few dollars. And I compare that to last year, at the beginning of last year in 2022, when we had a real big jump in the market. We had over 12,000 people averaging coming into the city every quarter for the first 2 quarters of last year. That's when the bulk of 20,000 people came into the city. And you're right. The bidding wars were crazy. The values just skyrocketed. And I think when we look back at that now today, to a year ago, was there some mistakes made? I think so. Was there some overpricing in some areas? We've been 10 years without an increase in property values here in Halifax, so it was long overdue. I called it for the longest while a 10-year correction, but there was some that were coming in from areas outside the province, Ontario, West, that had money. They were selling their homes at exorbitant levels in those provinces, and then coming in here. So for them, they were still getting a home for half price, even though they were bidding, maybe 100, 150, 200,000, and sometimes over what the asking price was. So, we live and learn, and that's just the way the markets are sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's like buying stocks. I mean, you pay $2 today, it goes to $10 tomorrow, and then it drops to $1 the next month or so. I mean, real estate, a little bit more tangible. You can touch it, you can feel it, and if you wait it out, you can always get your value back. But it's just, it was short-lived for that 6 months last year.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like any investment, if you kind of sell in the short term at the bottom, you usually lose.
Absolutely.
If you can hang on, ride it out, I mean, that's usually how you win. But some people, different situations for everybody, and sometimes you got to make a move. And a couple of years ago, you might have got too overzealous, and that 1% interest.
Yeah,
it's like free money to some people.
Yeah,
and
I always
really pushed it.
Well, Christian, I always say to people, you never overpay for something if you own it long enough.
Well, that's exactly it.
Because the market will always catch up, and the market will always, exceed what you originally paid for it. So, I mean, if you were buying a home today, and you may have overpaid for it, but if your intentions were to live in it long enough, 5 years, 10 years, the market catches up and you'll be fine. I mean, I don't think our market's going to be in for a major drop. I think the statistics I saw the other day from an economist was that our market has dropped. And this is when you take the whole market as a whole, the whole city, and taking all the areas. And I think they say that the overall real estate value on average dropped around 8%.
Right.
But there's still pockets within the city right now that are still seeing multiple bids.
Yeah.
Right. We see the stats coming out every week. You see it too, Chris. I mean, 25 to 30% of every home that comes on the market is over asking. So there's some areas that are still going through corrections.
Yeah.
And then there's some areas that people overpaid, builders in particular got overzealous, got greedy, and, asking price on new homes that should have been in the, mid sixes, ended up in the eights.
Right.
It's just everybody tried to take advantage. Unfortunately, I mean, that's just what happens when you got supply and demand issues. And now we're going to see a little bit of a correction as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So just speaking about, have you mentioned supply and demand? Obviously, that's what drives general economy. If you don't have supply and huge demand, then that puts upward pressure on the prices.
Absolutely.
I've seen a few realtors actually, not at our brokerage, but mention that the market is more what they call balanced. And obviously from a statistical perspective, that's incorrect.
It's incorrect.
We got some pressure from the interest rates, and there's downward pressure there putting on the pricing and, the buyers. But, can you speak to, what does a balanced, what does a buyer market in terms of inventory look like? What's a balanced market in terms of number of listings, and what constitutes a seller's market for those that don't know?
Well, I guess, if you were to look at current market today, and we were to go back just prior to, COVID, 2019, if we were to go back, the average number of listings that we would see in the city of Halifax would be around somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 homes. That's average. And that was kind of like a balanced market.
Okay.
And that was what the average was. So there was plenty of homes to satisfy the actual demand that was out there from the buying side. And so as we got into COVID and the demand for housing started, interest rates started to drop, and then there was like all this, rates are like free money right now.
Right, exactly.
That's what drove it.
Yeah.
Right, free money, and that was decisions that the government made in the Bank of Canada. I mean, they lowered the rates to stimulate the economy, but by having them so low, it created a real demand on the actual supply of homes. So the supply of homes started to dwindle pretty fast. So what would average 2,000 to 2,500 homes, we were seeing those averages drop to 1,000, 1,500, and then 500 to 1,000 homes.
Right.
And then it was tipping to the seller side, because all of a sudden now there was more buyer demand than there was, on the selling side. I mean, we couldn't get listings. And so, that created a perfect storm for sellers to sell and get, much more than what they would expect. I mean, people were getting 20, 30, in some cases 50%, in some cases 100% more for their homes.
Depending on the license.
And they didn't own them very long. And for some people that actually lived their lifetime in their homes and had them paid off, they were finally seeing some real values. And so that's when we tipped into basically the seller's market. And in order to get back, and we're not there yet, in order to get back to a buyer's market, we have to satisfy the demand. And we haven't done that yet. I mean, right now, I think we're averaging around 550 to 600 listings.
Yeah, that's all we got.
That's a quarter of what our normal market is. So are we still on the seller side? Absolutely. Is there some pressure on the sellers? There is. It's the interest rates that's putting some pressure on the sellers, because the buyers now have to go through the pre-approval process, whether you're a seasoned buyer or you're a first-time home buyer. You know, they're stress testing you now close to 7%. You know, you can get a really good interest rate below 5% that's out there. With yesterday's announcement, I'm waiting to see where those rates will stabilize, but you're still going to be looking at around a 5% rate, which tell you, when I bought my first home, it was close to 15%. Right. And I still bought a home.
Exactly.
And they say, oh, the homes were cheaper back then. Well, no, it's what the market value was at the time.
Yeah.
And so for us to look at today's market, I mean, if you're looking at rental, which is going to cost you $2,000 to $2,500 a month, as opposed to getting yourself into an affordable home, $300,000 to $400,000 range, it's still available. I mean, those homes do come on the market, but we are right now still in a seller's market with pressure, though, with pressure for them to be more, pay closer attention to their actual pricing structure. CMAs and the market values itself, there's going to be a little of adjustment there that expectations of what you saw last year, 100,000 over out, you're probably not going to see that this year.
Right.
Will you see a little bit of an increase in it? Absolutely. Because the anomaly was, if you got 30 offers on a home last year, there was only probably 4 or 5 offers that were basically well over what the asking price was.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other 25 offers were online or within the market value, maybe plus or minus 5, 10, 15%. So that was where the price of the home should have sold. So we're still in a seller's market until we see supply come up, which is not going to be anytime soon, unfortunately, until we see some of the developments in the city. But that's what the difference is. A seller's market, there's no inventory. So they have the control of the market, and the buyers are out there scrambling to see which one they can buy. Interest rates now are affecting that. And to get into an actual buyer's market, you got to have an ample amount of supply, which we used to have years ago, where there was times where we would have 3,500 to 4,000 listings on the market. And it would just be so many listings. It'd be not a bidding war. It'd be like, who could give us the best offer on the home? And that's when you get into a buyer's market, right? So the demand is not there, but lots of supply. And there was a time when we used to have a lot of transferees out of Halifax, especially with the military and the government. It was a very transient city because we're a service city. We're not an industrial city.
Right.
So a lot of government workers, a lot of military, there's banks and everything. And they used to move people like crazy. So there was always a good supply of homes out there in the market. And so that's all changed now. And but yeah, that's sort of like, I don't know if that helps, but that's sort of what I would explain what a balanced market would be, a seller's and a buyer's market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely, if anybody can take anything away, 3,000 to 4,000 homes on the market versus barely 600.
Correct.
Big difference.
Big difference.
And another thing you mentioned, and I kind of feel this with a few guys and clients in the past, they made the comment, well, houses were cheaper back then, so the interest rate didn't matter as much. But then, they don't think about proportionally, people also didn't make the same income.
Exactly.
So when you look at it all together, proportionally, it's the same.
It's the same.
And I have
if you look at a future dollar back then, you're right. $120,000 house,
it's not the same.
15% interest rate. It would be the same in today's market. Looking at a $300,000 home at a 5% interest rate.
And if you made $100,000 back then, and you make $100,000 today, it's not the same thing.
No, and your amortizations back then, 20 years max.
Right now, 30. Can you go 35?
30 right now. There's talks that they may go to 35, even up to 40 right now. Ontario they're looking at because they're looking at, I think last week I was listening to the news. I mean, unfortunately, we have to be, sort of handcuffed to what happens in other parts of Canada. But I think they were saying that there was 21,000 foreclosures in the books in Ontario, like in the Toronto GTA marketplace. That's just the beginning. It's going to get worse before it corrects itself, but that's just the beginning of the storm. We're not going to see that here in Nova Scotia. Not at all. We're not going to see a storm here. Our homes, as far as I'm concerned, when you look across the country and you look in your bigger markets, and we're considered now a bigger market, but you look at Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, any of these big cities that we are compared to now, as a city. Like we're one of like, I think the 7 or 8 big cities in the country. And you can come in here and you can still get a home average price like $500,000.
Right.
Very reasonable. When you compare it to the rest of Canada, I'm not saying that, hey, for a lot of people that may see this podcast and say, oh yeah, this guy thinks that $500,000 is reasonable. I don't mean it that way. It's just, there are homes out there you can get for $300,000. There's homes out there you can buy $1 million, $1.5 million. I mean, I just live in a modest home. I mean, I don't overspend or anything like that. I live in a modest home. And, you know, I always, you know, I learned at a younger age. I mean, don't overtax yourself with big mortgages, and because with big mortgages and big homes comes cleaning bills and heating bills and all the else that comes along with it.
Golden handcuffs.
Golden handcuffs, because all of a sudden those trips that you look forward to every year, they don't exist anymore, right? So you got to live within your means. If the bank says, hey, you're approved for $500,000, buy something for around $4 million. And if it takes a while to find that $400,000 home, take your time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it, because, I mean, the house we're sitting in right now is the first house I ever bought with my wife, sorry. And, you know, when we got pre-approved, and I mean, we weren't making close to what we do. You know, we were 20 years old,
Yeah.
you know, 34 now.
Yeah.
Gonna be 30, she's 35. The bank was like, yeah, we'll give you $400,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I can't afford a $400,000 mortgage. So we ended up, you know, in a, like you say, modest home for probably half what they said they'd lend us.
Yep.
And we still thought we were going to be house poor.
Exactly.
You know, never owned a house, and you never know. So I get like why there's such hesitancy in some people getting in the market.
There is.
You know, they definitely have a problem when they look at Viewpoint or, you know, the REMAX website or whatever platform they use. And you look at, say, you know, this house, you know, bought it for $214. The guy behind me sold for $450, same house.
Yeah.
It's tough to swallow.
It is really tough to swallow. I mean, I think, you know, I mean, and I'm sure you know, if there's young people that are watching your podcasts here and, you know, and they're in their early 20s and they're just starting their careers. I mean, if you're going to do a savings, save it in an RSP. You know, a lot of people think, oh, you don't get much of a return on those, you know, it pays low interest. But the beauty of an RSP for young people, and you know that, Chris, I mean, start off, put as much as you can into these RSPs. It is a way of saving. And guess what? You can borrow against it when you buy a house, and the RSP stays in place.
Absolutely.
It's one of the benefits of an RSP, actually. And I think the younger generation, I mean, you know, for those that are watching this and are saying like, wow, I'd like to know more about that. I mean, they should reach out to you, Chris, and talk to you about that, because you get your money into an RSP, you save a few $1,000s a year. Those few $1,000s a year, within like 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to have probably $25,000, $30,000 maybe saved up. Right. You borrow against that. You don't even touch your RSP. You just borrow against your RSP. You use it for your first purchase. And now you've got an RSP still in play. And now you got a house.
Absolutely.
And that's how young people should look at it, because we're not all blessed with rich parents that give down payments. You know, the people that are watching out there right now that have a hard time just making ends meet, because, you know, that's all. But if you can find, if it's $50 a month, $100 a month, it doesn't matter what it is, there has to be a savings in place. You got to structure yourself financially, put some savings away. And that's how you build it up. And, you know, we don't, you know, I know people are watching this and saying, yeah, I wish I had a mom and dad could throw me $50,000 or $100,000. That happens out there.
Yeah.
Don't listen to those people.
Don't listen.
Right? Because they didn't work for it. You know, their parents gave it to them, and they have a house, they have it. Right? Like, I worked at everything that I have in my life, right? No one ever gave it. But I had to be disciplined in how I saved my money, because I knew that that's the only way to get ahead. And that's why anybody that's watching this right now and saying, I'll never save enough for a home. Yes, you will. Just start. Absolutely. There's a way about it. And there's banks out there actually to do 100% financing if you got a really good job. So get out of those, you know, big, highly paid or highly rented apartments at $2,300, $2,500 a month. Talk, you know, reach out to you. I mean, the Credit Union Atlantic, I mean, they've always had a great 100% program.
Yeah.
And they'll let you borrow 100% to buy a home.
Right.
These are the things you need to be doing right now, not when the market heats up again.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I made a little video too about, you know, budgeting and building your credit. It's like, you know, you can set an automatic withdrawal.
Absolutely.
Transfer into your RSP anytime you get paid. So you get, we don't get paid regularly bi-weekly. It'd be awesome if we did.
Yeah.
But for those that do, $50.
Yeah.
100 if you can.
Absolutely.
You know, don't go 10 times out for lunch in the week and bring your girlfriend to an Airbnb every other weekend and a wine tour. And I watch a million friends that say they can't afford it, but when I look from an exterior, they don't want to. Is kind
They
of
don't.
is kind of what I'm looking. It's like, oh well, what we're doing is fun, and we live here. It's easy, and we just pay, and we don't have it. I get it.
You know what I mean? Well, I mean, and I look at,
You just have to sacrifice a couple of things.
they say
They don't have to be big.
it doesn't have to, because I mean, most people, they're out there, they say, I can't save a thing. Yet you'll find a way to go to Tim Hortons or a fast food place every day.
Every day.
You're spending $5 to $10.
Do the
You
math.
don't think it because you're giving a tip. You don't realize it because you're saying, oh yeah, but the coffee is only like $2 something. But you're giving a tip. So that's $3 to $5 there. Or you go into a fast food place, add that up in a run of month. That's 30 days in a month.
Just round it to $20 a day, $600 a month.
Now multiply that over 12 years.
Right.
12 months.
Right?
That's $7,200 a year.
That's just your lunch. Cut something else out. Case of beer.
Exactly.
Whatever your poison is.
You can easily save with just cutting out some of the frivolous stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis. You can at least have a savings of around $5,000 a year.
Oh, totally unreasonable.
3 to 5 years, you'll have enough for a down payment on a house.
And imagine if you have a partner or a wife or a husband or whatever, if you're both on the same page, you should be able to do it.
Well, this is it. I mean, people get caught up in the media, and listen to me. Don't listen to the media.
No, I tell my
They gaslight all the time. They embellish everything that you hear. They talk about the high price of home. No one will be able to afford it. There is people out there that can afford a home. Not all the homes are $500,000. I mean, Chris, you're out there in the market.
Actually.
I mean, there are homes that you can still get for around $300,000. That is a bargain, because to build a brand new home today is $500,000-$600,000.
It'd be tough.
But there's homes out there that you can get for $350,000. I mean, you put a mortgage even at 5% interest rate, right? You're still below $2,000 on your mortgage payment, which is cheaper than an actual apartment right now.
Yeah, because they say, what is it? Every couple $100,000 you borrow from the bank roughly costs you about $1,000 a month, give or take. With rates
Give or take.
and everything.
Yep.
But like for people that want to do that rough math, like you want to buy a $600,000 home, it's going to cost you $3,000 a month.
Yep. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
That's your property tax.
That's it.
All that.
That's
all
it.
that good stuff, and the variance and the interest, whether you're fixed or variable.
Yeah. I mean, you live in the big cities. I mean, most people that live in the big cities, they live outside. They live in like areas. Like if you take Toronto, they go to Barrie, they go, down Markham, Hamilton, these areas.
Milton.
So I look at Nova Scotia here, and we got it. Our highway system has gotten so much better over the years, and the infrastructure that the government's putting into it. People that are buying a home and say to themselves, "Well, I can't get anything in the city that's reasonably priced." What's wrong with going to Enfield or going to Truro?
This next
Go down to
place.
Windsor. Go to Mount Uniacke. Go down. There's all kinds of really great areas. If you go down to Eastern Shore, there's a lot of areas where you can get homes for around $300,000. Great piece of land. A short drive to the city if you're working in the city. A lot of people still, I mean, I know a lot of people are now going back and working in-house with, whether it's an office or whatever, but there's a lot of people that still work out of home. I mean, a 30 to 40-minute drive, and you're building equity in a house. I mean, it's the way I would look at it.
Absolutely.
You got people in the city of Toronto, just to get to work, it's an hour and a half commute, and they live in the city.
Right.
Because the traffic is so bad. And we complain about a 20, 30, 40-minute commute. It really isn't. I mean, if you want to get into home ownership, you should be looking outside the city. If your affordability is not in the city, then go outside the city and stay within an hour, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I find people kind of get stuck in that. I need to be right next to Halifax.
Not true.
Man, all my buddies that kind of had that mentality. I mean, they all have great homes and, not right in the city. Some of them do. But I mean, they all have kids. They're never downtown anyway. So what?
Exactly.
You could have saved yourself a couple more dollars, maybe more property. If they're not happy, I'm not saying they're not.
And I mean, you're basically now zooming, sort of zeroing in on the younger generation. So these are people in their say mid to late 20s, and they want to be close to the city.
Right.
I mean, and these are the kind of people. If you're a professional, you got a great job, make good money, you should be looking at maybe a set of flats or a triplex.
Yeah.
You can borrow up to 95% of that.
Live in,
Rent the other two, rent the other one. It pays for your mortgage.
Kind of got to get innovative.
Yeah, you got to be innovative because the banks are, very much, the money is available. Right. So, I mean, I look at a 5% interest rate as still being really, really affordable. So, I mean, if I was looking at a set of flats somewhere in the city, West End or whatever, and let's say you're paying maybe $500,000-$600,000 for that. And, let's say that it's a set of flats with two bedrooms. You can get $2,500 to $3,000 today.
Easy.
In an apartment. So it basically almost pays for your mortgage. Even if you're out of pocket $1,000 a month, it's cheaper than actually renting for $2,500 a month.
Absolutely.
So people got to be creative. Talk to the professionals like yourself, Chris, the realtors that are out there on the ground and have access to lenders that can actually help them.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I kind of files off that question. I'm going to come to the next one. I mean, I know you guys kind of had me answer this, and I know you're a little strapped for time. So I think this is a great question to kind of wrap it all up. So I know you said you started 25 years ago in real estate. You kind of found REMAX. So I want to ask you, like, why REMAX? What's your why?
Why REMAX? That's a good question, Chris. I didn't think you were going to ask me that one today. I went out to all the different brokerages, I guess, 25 years ago when I was, wanting to get my license and so on. And I came across REMAX. And I came from an organization that was number one in the world. And I really wanted to work with a company that was the best. It had the best for clients, that had the best programs and best charity, organizations that gave back to the community. And I came across REMAX. And not only were they number one, they were like on the cutting edge of technology. The Children's Wish Foundation is huge for them. And I've been down to Denver headquarters. I've been up to REMAX Canada, and I see what they give back to these children's hospitals is incredible. And it truly was a brokerage where you could be in control of your own business. Because most brokerages will actually control your business for you. And it's not that easy to maneuver through how they run their organizations. And with REMAX, you run your own business. They give you the tools, they give you everything you need, and you go out there and you create your business. I mean, it's really entirely up to you how you run it, but the tools are there. And when the REMAX itself, it's just a proud organization. The culture is very family oriented. And I would find that when I was first in my career, the kids in the summertime, and we would save up our money just like everybody does today, and we would take them down the floor. And no matter where I traveled, if I saw a REMAX office, I could pop in there, and they would treat me the same as what I would be here in Halifax. It was just an amazing feeling. And I had tried some of these other brokerages, and then if you're not here, sorry, you can't. But these people would just open their doors, and they'd show you an office, they'd show you the fax machine. That's what we used back then,
right?
But today they would show you a computer and that. But I just found that the culture was there, and for me, I had a passion to do more international sales. So access to the world is what REMAX offered. So, on top of the tools and the technology and access to the world and the charities that they supported, it was just something that was really special. Here in the city, they were number one. They didn't have the most number of agents, but they had the number one agents and made them number one. And I guess, I would say to you, Chris, I mean, I love the company so much as an agent back then that I bought the company with two partners 3 years ago. And we changed the game in the sense of what we wanted to do is make that family atmosphere and culture even better than what it was. And I think that's sort of what I look back at. When you're an agent, you get calls from all these different brokerages and they offer you all the world, but there's nothing there. It's empty, right? It's empty promises. And with REMAX, when they tell you they're going to give you something or they're going to provide something or they're going to, upgrade technology, CRMs, all of this, lead source programs, all that. When they say they're going to do it, they do it. And I guess that's why I've been at REMAX so long. I never looked anywhere else. When people see you and they see your balloon, they'll come up to you and talk about real estate. They know instantly that you have the knowledge to talk about real estate. And it's because of the training and everything that goes behind the scenes. The general public thinks that we just get a license, we go out there and we start really selling real estate. They do. They really do.
A couple pieces of paper.
And they don't look at how long. I mean, it took me 2 years, I think, when I first started, it took me 2 years to establish myself as an agent. Didn't make much money for those first 2 years, but it took me about 2 years to get established. Once you get established and you get a database and you get people that are following, you take care of people, and then the business starts to grow. But 2 years, I scrimped and saved every penny to stay in the business. I worked 7 days a week, 24 hours a day if I had to. And but the brand, why REMAX is the people, like the culture. It's just, I don't know. I've been gravitating ever since. I could never look anywhere else, and that's my biggest passion about REMAX is the people, the agents that are there, and the family atmosphere.
Absolutely, and I could reverberate that back. I mean, obviously you're aware I didn't start with REMAX. I come from another brokerage, and I mean it was started at day one when you guys had the appreciation barbecue. I just knew from that day on, once I got to the office and everybody was just so welcoming, and they knew I wasn't part of the team yet, but they didn't matter. They didn't know me, so they made themselves known. And it's just been a really enjoyable process since, and it's been an honor to be a part of the team. And I mean, you're definitely doing an awesome job bringing that culture that you've seen, you know, from when you started with REMAX.
Big time.
You know, I think other people see it as well, because, you know, it's no secret that we're getting a lot of new agents from other brokerages, and, you know, ask any one of them, they all feel the same.
Yeah, and you know what, Chris, I mean, like, you know, 3 years ago when we took ownership, and you know, we went down the path. When we sat around in our very first meetings, it wasn't about how much money could we make, you know, what could we do with the brokerage. It became, what can we do to make the lives of agents better? You know, these agents, day in and day out, they get up early in the morning, they get home late at night, and they spend a lot of time by themselves driving their cars, you know, doing their networking and seeing people. And we said to ourselves, we have to make it so that they have a home away from home. And you see that, Chris. I mean, you know, when Acreley was built, I mean, it had the gym, it had the kitchen, it had everything there that an agent could feel comfortable, just as if they were home. They could cook a meal, they could go to the gym, they could have a shower. You know, everything is there for them. In the summertime, they get the barbecue outside. They can do what they want, but they can feel like they're home because they spend so much time away from home. And now with our new flagship office coming now on Bedford Highway, overlooking the water, you know, the agents that work out of our Halifax office now are going to enjoy that water. They're going to have a gym. They're going to have amenities the same as any other agent. And I think that's what's made a big difference for us. You know, you say a lot of new agents come our way. The main reason why is because our focus is on the agents, right? Most brokerages focus on their bottom line, how much profit they can make, how much they can share. And we don't look at that. We look at how can we make the lives of agents better so that they can do better in the marketplace, provide better for their families, provide better for their clients. And so it's just a different mentality. And, you know, we've done well from that, and our agents have done well. And I hope, you know, for as many years that I can stay in the business until I retire, you know, we'll continue to give back to our agents.
Awesome. Yeah, well, you're definitely doing a fantastic job. I can definitely attest to that. And I know you got to go, so we'll wrap it up right here. I really appreciate you coming on, giving me your time, and I'm really looking forward to taking this journey and riding out to my career to the end. And yeah,
I want to see you sitting in this chair 25 years from now. Yeah. And I hope that people are watching this podcast, you know, reach out to you, Chris, and let them help, you know, so that you can help them with their real estate needs, because, you know, it's an important time. Like, don't stop wanting to buy a home. Buy one today. Absolutely. Because it's never a bad time to buy a home. You know, always a good time to put some equity in your pocket.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wrap it up right here. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. Yeah. See you now.